Hey everyone, Mike here. This is the Ballard Criterium in Seattle, Washington, and this is my 6th race as a Cat 5. I've done 2 road races so far and 3 Criteriums, but this Ballard Criterium is actually my first USA Cycling Sanction crit. So the other 3 crits that I did, although totally competitive and very much crit races, were technically like kind of just practices. And I also have those videos posted on YouTube, so if you want to learn more about Cat 5 at Seward Park, check those out. They also have commentary and all that. You may have noticed I forgot to turn on my Garmin this first lap, but I do turn it on in a little bit, so you'll start to get all the power numbers. But yeah, so I showed up really late to this race, which was my first and probably biggest mistake of the whole race. I started out in the very back. You can see right now, I think there's maybe 1 or 2 cyclists behind me on the rear cam. So I didn't get a chance to kind of try this racetrack out before the race. And having never raced here before and having only done a couple crits, I got really psyched out. A lot of my teammates and a lot of people were posting about how the road conditions of the Ballard crit are really bad, how there's all these grooves and holes and everything like that. So for the first couple laps, I kind of just hang out in the back because I want to see what's ahead of me. I want to address this to like other Cat 5s who are considering doing this crit. So maybe, these are guys next year looking to do the Ballard crit 2020 in Cat 5. It's not as bad as everybody seems to make it out to be. If you're a Seattle cyclist and you're used to riding on Seattle roads, I mean, yeah, the Ballard crit, the road quality is pretty poor, but it's not really much worse than most of us see on a daily basis. So just go out, do it, you'll be fine. You'll see after a couple laps, I get a lot more confidence and I start cornering and riding wheels a lot better. But I want to throw out some stats while I'm kind of hanging out in the back of the peloton here before things get interesting, so you guys can kind of see what I'm working with coming into this race. Yeah, so again, I'm a Cat 5, which means I am a first-year racer. I have not yet completed 10 races. I have 2 road races under my belt and 3 criteriums, so that puts me at my 6th race. 38 years old, 180 pounds, and my FTP is about 310. I just measured that a few weeks ago. So probably pretty average for a Cat 5. My weight and FTP are maybe a little higher than average, but on flat races, that's great for me. On hills, I'm generally pretty terrible. But you'll see, I'm able to do some. My power output's high enough that I'm able to do some stuff in this race that is kind of fun. So I'm able to kind of jump around this group right here that was falling out the back, and kind of jump onto the next group. And that's basically what this race ends up being for me today, is kind of coming up on the back of a little group that's falling out, or a rider, and then trying to kind of, I guess, leapfrog past them. Spoiler alert, I never really make it back to the front. I never make it back to the front of the race. I don't even know where it is. I think there are about 60 guys signed up for this race, so I'm way back there, but I don't know it yet. I mean, at this point, I'm cruising along. I'm putting out power, going, relatively fast and feeling good. I see lots of racers ahead, and I feel like I'm in it. But yeah, you'll see. It's it's a Cat 5 race. It just blows up and breaks to pieces right away. But I have to say, of the 5 races I've done so far, this race, without a doubt, was the most fun. Regardless of my results, and regardless of how the race went, I had an absolute blast. It's the first race I've been in where there was a huge group of people cheering. The race was really fast. It was pretty flat, which is great for me. I was able to work on my cornering a lot. It starts out pretty poorly. I tend to always create a little bit of gap between myself and the rider in front of me on the corner. But that gets a little bit better as the race continues and I get more confidence. But this area right here that we're coming into, so this is the start-finish line. You can't really tell in the video, but there's a very, very slight grade increase. And so I figured for me, this would be the best time to try to move up. It's really protected from any wind, and I can just kind of launch myself up. So I try most of the time that I come around the start-finish line to jump ahead a couple riders. My My heart rate at this point is 184, which is pretty high, but I remember I wasn't feeling too bad yet. I was still feeling okay. I'm still not on anybody's wheel yet, but that's mostly due to like my fear of the course. I'm kind of afraid, like, of running into something on the ground because I'm behind somebody, and that goes away after a little while. I get my confidence up in the course. So another Cat 5 tip: if you can get to the race early, if you get any chance at all to do some warm-up laps, do them. Build some confidence on this course. Find out where the manhole covers are, find out where the cracks are, and you'll be a lot more confident. So yeah, so there's somebody passing me right now. I think this is the only guy that passes me the whole race. So I jump on his wheel, which is fantastic. So it's kind of like the first ride up through the race that I get. And he pulls me up 3 or 4 riders, and so I get a little bit of draft. And I actually start drafting. So I'm like 5 minutes in the race, and I've only just started drafting, minus the times when I take corners really terribly, like I just did there. Oh, that's right. This guy passes me as well, but I jump on his wheel, get a draft, and now we're going 26 miles an hour, and I'm barely doing my FTP. So for any of you that haven't raced before and you're looking at the 27 miles per hour and thinking that's way too fast, I can't hang in this race. Really, when you're sitting on somebody's wheel or when there's a bunch of riders in front of you, 27 miles an hour in a crit race, a 30-minute race, is not a big deal at all. So don't be intimidated by that. When I'm riding on my own, if I try to hold it at 27, that's hard. I'm not holding 27 miles an hour for very long. But sitting on someone's wheel, or sitting in the back of like a pace line, I mean, I can sit that. Most people can sit at that pace without much of an effort. But yeah, a couple more riders falling back, so I jump on a wheel, and then it looks like the guy in front of me, the Audi guy, is getting dropped. He's not getting dropped, but there's a gap forming. And so once I get back on his wheel after taking another terrible turn, I'm going to have to come around him and try to come up ahead. So this is the big problem with being a beginner racer, starting in the back, not cornering well, is, in addition to like not having a lot of these skills, and I mean, showing up late, that's just a silly mistake. But in addition to not having a lot of these skills, because I have to constantly move up across these gaps, I'm basically making this race as hard for myself as I possibly can. So I'm going to do it again. So immediately I come up on a wheel, I get a draft for like 2 seconds. That rider's getting dropped. I have to come right around. There's another guy getting dropped. He's going so much slower than I am. I can't even draft off him at all. And so basically, like, I'm just pushing wind, for almost an entire lap. And, that's just positioning. Like, if I had been up, I'm strong enough that if I had been near to the front of the race at the beginning, I wouldn't have had to deal with that. So, I did it to myself. So I remember the part that I'm in right now. The reason I'm not launching myself up and jumping on those wheels is because I'm actually starting to feel tired at this point. So there's a couple riders ahead of me. I'm trying to kind of get my heart rate back down and get the lactic acid out of my legs a little bit. Just kind of catch my breath. And my heart rate's starting to come back down a little bit. So you'll see I start to pick up my effort coming into this area here. So yeah, I jump back up to like 700 watts, and I make an effort to kind of jump back on. So this rider right here in all black, the moment I see him and I see the way that he's pedaling, he's got like this, he looks comfortable on his bike. I figured this is the kind of guy that I want to follow. So he looks really comfortable, really balanced. He's not bouncing around on his bike. And so I jump on his wheel, and I decide I'm going to hang on this guy for a little while, instead of trying to jump around and, absolutely blowing myself into nothingness. So, yeah, so another rider getting dropped, and myself and the rider in black, we're going to come around. And now I'm in his draft, and I'm doing, it's totally unsubstantial watts. So, 100, 200 watts, going 24 miles an hour. Like, this is where I need to be, right? I'm getting protection from the wind and kind of catching my breath. But I'm about to make my second major rookie error of the day. So I'm going to tell him, hey, I'll come around. I'm going to do a pull, and I totally blow it. I never looked back. I dropped him. I didn't mean to. I basically forever alone. I basically I drafted off of him and kind of recuperated a little bit, and then when I came around, I kind of didn't do it like gently enough. I came around him really hard, and so he was already hurting from taking that long pull. I can't really call it a pull. I mean, I don't know that he knows that I was even on his wheel. He was just riding, but he put in this really hard effort, and then I came around at 500 watts, meaning that he has to basically hit 500 to 600 watts to jump onto my wheel, which basically, I mean, it just screwed him over. And so I apologize. I don't know who that guy was. I'm embarrassed. It would have been really awesome if I would have come around him correctly and we could have worked together, because now I am in no man's land, as you can see. So I've done this to myself. So now I'm doing more than a lap completely by myself, pushing wind. I'm sitting at 540 watts for like this entire run right here, start finish line. I mean, that's it's terrible. It's terrible to watch and see what I had done. I don't even think I looked back until I went an entire lap. I looked back hoping he'd come around and realized he wasn't there. So now I'm alone. I see some riders up ahead of me. I know I have to put in an effort. Hopefully I can catch them. I can draft off of them, get my heart rate back down, catch my breath. And I don't know. And at this point I realize that I've messed up. I'm like 10 minutes into the race now, and I can't even see the race anymore. It's just little tiny groups of riders that have been gapped. And I've seen this happen on other people's YouTube videos, so I know what's going on. I know that I'm basically out of the race right now. But being a Cat 5, the thing about it is, I don't show up to these things with this expectation that I'm going to do really well or I'm going to have a certain finish. My goal is to show up and ride as well as I can. And as far as fitness goes, and as far as like my exertion goes, I felt really happy with this race. I rode really hard. I did. So didn't race well, but I did race hard, if that's like a fair statement. I think that's a fair statement. So I didn't race well, but I did race hard. So catching my breath here. I can see this rider. He's not going too hard. I think he kind of sees the writing on the wall too, and he's tired. But I sit on his wheel for the back part of this course. Let me catch my breath, and you can see my heart rate is down to 177, so my heart rate's dropping. So I'm starting to feel better. I'm starting to feel strong, and I'm pretty sure I come around in just a moment here. I don't really need that long to recover. That 30 seconds or so was good enough. So I come around, and this rider on the right in the orange with it's like kind of like a green jersey. His name's Even, and we've actually been in the back of a Cat 5 race before. So he and I have we've been in this exact situation in other races. So with him, because I'm kind of excited to see him, I actually look back to make sure that he's on my wheel, and he's off a little bit, but he's a good guy, pretty strong. So he's able to kind of do a little gut check and jump back on. And I try to come around him easy, but I don't want to slow down too much, right? Like, I still have this crazy idea in my head that the front of the race is going to go slow. Sometimes nobody wants to pull, and so the race will slow way down. I've seen that happen at Seward Park. So I kind of have this fairy tale going on in my head right now that's going to happen and that we're going to catch up. So yeah, Even's behind me. He's kind of getting a draft for a lap. I'm pulling for a lap. Definitely not going very fast anymore. Down to like 22 miles an hour coming up this start finish line. I think most of the other laps I was like 25 miles an hour. So we're into the race now. I'm tired. I see nobody in front of me. But people are still screaming and cheering. I mean, it's still exhilarating. Like, I'm still getting a lot of that adrenaline kick. And it's still a blast. I know Even's behind me. I'm looking back. And he's going to come around here in just a minute, give me a really nice break, which is great. So, yeah, thanks, Even. So he comes around and kind of kicks it up a notch. And I was smart when I took my pole. I didn't, push myself into the red. So as soon as he as soon as he comes around, I can jump on his wheel real easily without being in danger of being dropped. So, we're kind of just like in recovery mode at this point. I'm not pushing as hard as I was the first couple laps because I know how bad, how far off the back we are. So cruising along, Even's taking a pole. He's got us up to 23. So we're still going a little slow. People are, I think, just dropping out of the race. They realize how far back they are, but not me and Even. We're stubborn. I don't want to say we're experienced, but this is our 6th race. There might be some people in their first because it's Cat 5. There might be some people that are in their 10th, so there might be some more experienced people. But we've kind of been around the block. We've been dropped before, so we're just going to do the best we can and ride for as long as we can until they pull us. So we grab one more guy. I don't catch his name, but Even comes right around him and he jumps on Even's wheel, and so I just jump on his wheel. I probably should have stayed right on Even's, but this gives me a chance to recover a little bit more. I do intend to take another big pull. I remember at this point, as we're coming around this corner, I was starting to feel really good again. I was starting to get my breathing back. I was feeling in control of my cadence and in control of the bike again. And still have this idea that we could put in a really big dig and try to catch back on. So one of the fun things about coming through the start finish line is there was somebody else in the race named Mike, and it must have been somebody's wife and kids or something, but in the first couple laps of the race when I was still in it with the main group of riders, I'd come around to the start finish line and somebody be screaming off the top of their lungs, Mike, go Mike. And I know it wasn't for me, but it was still like really motivating. It definitely made me push really hard. It's just kind of a cool experience. People are cheering and like there's cowbells and the commentator, the guy with the microphones, like yelling for us, and it's a cool experience. Even being way out the back like this, it was pretty cool. So yeah, so we're coming up. There's a couple of the riders in front of us. If I remember correctly, those guys were pretty blown up, and I think we just kind of come around them. They don't. Yeah, I mean they're basically the guy up here is sitting up. I think he's pretty tired. You can't really see him, but yeah, it's the guy in front of me in the blue. He takes a little rest right on that wheel. My heart rate now is down to 173. Really, what I should have done here is I should have started a pull on this backstretch. I really don't know why I didn't. Oh, I know why I didn't. That's right, because the guy in blue sped up just 26 miles an hour, and I remember looking down at my power meter, and I was like, man, I don't want to come around into the wind at 26. Thinking in my head of how fast that is, but you forget when you're in these races that like taking a pull at 26 miles an hour when you're only going to pull for like a minute is really not that big of a deal. So I should have come around him and pulled right away. It was kind of, I wasn't like trying to like take advantage of his wheel or anything, but so we come up here and I do try to come around. I'm going to come around and take a big pull, and surprise, the race is over for us. The referee pulls us out, just kind of signals uses a hand signal over his throat, basically saying, it's over for you guys. So we roll around, find an exit corner, and we are done. I thank Even and the guy in blue for their pulls and for working with me, and that's it for the race. So threw up some results. I was a DNF. No, actually wasn't technically a DNF. They didn't write me as a DNF. They just wrote me as, I didn't finish with the main group. So I was tied for 30th out of 60. So I guess 30 riders got pulled, 30 finished. Yeah, there's the stats. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.